Welcome to the Life You're Made For with me, Dr. Heather Penny. We're going to be having conversations that talk about us spiraling up versus spiraling down, because we all want to be living lives that are about thriving, not just surviving. This is the life you're made for. So let's get going. Hello, friends. I am so excited today. I've gotten to see some really cool stuff coming out of two of my guests today. This is Rick and Tom, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit of who they are and what they do, and then we're going to jump into the conversation today.
Go ahead, Tom. You started off.
All right. Well, thanks, Rick, and thanks so much for letting us be here today. Super excited when we get to talk to someone from the world of education and from the world of humanity. And I got a chance to listen to several of your podcasts, so I'm super excited to be here. Rick and I have been I want to say dynamic duo, but I don't even know if that's the right word, but we've been a duo for over a decade now. Rick and I stumbled across each other. It's a fascinating story. And we have spent time going from Houston to Hawaii to Montreal and back, and in front of over 2 million students, parents, and educators. We started off with a very simple message, and we've stayed very true to that message. And fun to love to talk about it.
Love it. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, and so I've been involved with Squires and Heroes and Tom for about 11 years now. And for those of you that are listening and hear Tom cutting out a little bit, it's not because he has an extremely bad stutter. It's because he happens to be in another country. So just to let you know that. But I've been with Squires and Heroes for about 11 years now, and I've had the opportunity to speak to almost 2 million students across the country. That's an amazing thing that I never believed was possible before I met Tom and Squires and Heroes. So I get to share a message of hope, and we all need hope in our life. HOPE, hold on, possibilities exist. And I am an extremely happy human being because of where I'm at today in my life, and that's speaking to kids, a wife, and 2 kids in my life, Amy, my wife, and my 2 girls, Grace and Tenley. So I'm extremely happy with where I'm at, and it's because of what I've gone through and the people I've met along the way that got me here.
I love it. Here's why I was excited to have you on my show today. I started out in education. And I worked with 3rd graders, 4th graders, 5th graders, all the way up to junior high in East LA with a lot of the tensions that were happening in inner city work, then moved up in the university level, taught teachers. And then after about 20 years of that in the industry, I moved over into coaching. So everything that I have in my work that I do as a leadership coach and trusted advisor, I learned in education, how people learn and grow, how we go after their social emotional learning and their intelligence, their SQ and their EQ. And so I was so excited because the work you're doing as an educator, I would have brought you into our district, our school, whatever we're doing. And I get so excited about it because and we have a huge group of educators who listen to this podcast and also are on my mailing list. And so I just was really happy to promote you and the work you do. One of the things that struck me when I watched your videos was a phrase you said: you're teaching kids to take care of one another. You're not focusing on the bullies. You're teaching them to take care of one another. So you're empowering the kid to address not just the bully and take them on, but take care of the kid being victimized. What a great concept. Can you speak a little bit more to that and what you do?
And I apologize for this. I tested this for a couple times, and I was like, oh, this is going to work fine. And then this morning, just bam, I was on another call and it just kept dropping. So I'm just stalling here for a second to see if I got any more stutter.
Yeah,
so maybe that's it. So,
honestly, Tom, it's better this way because I can't see you anymore. And that's awesome.
Cody, edit, Cody.
No, keep. That's the beginning and the end of the podcast right there.
All right, Cody.
It sounds like it's going to work. So do you want to just give me that one more time?
I'll give you the question one more time.
Yeah.
So what I was really excited about when I got to see a little bit about what Tom and Rick are doing in Sweetheart and Heroes, their work with working with social and emotional learning in the classrooms and with the kids, it wasn't focused on the bully. it was focused on kids helping each other love each other better. I think was a phrase they used in the video. And I love that because we always want to be empowering humanity, humans, to be more humane. And if we give the negative focus onto the bullies, that's what is derailing so much of our energy. So I love where your focus is. And Tom, I guess this is what a little bit I want you to speak to. Tell us a little bit about how that's going and what made you shift that focus from the bully onto helping empower kids to treat each other and love each other better.
So this is the heart of our message from day one. It's never changed from day one. Our message has always been about empowering students. And when you say that phrase, a lot of times people think you're trying to empower students that are marginalized, that are treated the wrong way. And from day one, it's never been about that. And people say, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do when kids are being treated the wrong way? And, you know, I don't know what it's like to be bullied. I don't know what it's like to be a bully. I don't know what it's like. But I do know what it's like to watch kids get treated the wrong way. And we know that 96 to 97% of the time, those behaviors are never addressed by schools, by districts, by educators, because they're done in the shadows of the school, in the locker rooms, the cafeteria. And nothing has changed from when you were in school, I was in school, and Rick was in school. It's the same thing. But 85% of the time, there's other students watching when those things happen. And our job has always been to create more sweethearts and heroes. And we can go into what that means, but I have publicly said openly that we don't have a bullying problem in America. And sometimes people just slam the brakes on and they say, well, that's not what I see. And I say, listen, bullies have been around for thousands of years. People have been mistreating people for thousands and thousands of years. We're not going to stop that. The human heart can be desperately wicked. Like, we know this. Joseph Stalin eliminated, 50 million of his own people, some people say. That's not changing. But what we can do, and the real issue, is the lack and the deterioration of sweethearts and heroes, people that give hope and people that jump into action. And that's what Rick and I are doing. We don't focus on the negative. We focus on creating more of these sweethearts and heroes, people that give hope and people that take action.
I love it. Tell me a little bit of why you call it sweethearts and heroes, because I heard the definition in the video, but I want our listeners to hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to let the one of the world's hope experts talk about the sweetheart side. I'll probably jump in the hero side. Sweet, but, let me just preface it by saying this. I was speaking for about 2 years, about 13 or 14 years ago. Kids were coming up to me after assemblies, tears in their eyes, telling me their stories, sneaking back into auditoriums. And they were really focusing on one thing, the absence of hope. And we know that we have a generation of young people that might feel more hopeless than ever before in human history. Things like suicides have tripled in middle schoolers since 2007. And maybe that's the worst of the destructive decisions. So as kids were coming up to me, I don't know what it's like to be hopeless. So I had this chance encounter with this guy named Rick Yarosh. He would have never remembered me. Finally got in touch with him, begged him to come and watch, because I can't speak to the absence of hope, but the World Hope expert can. And that's where Rick Yarosh will jump in on what these sweethearts are.
I love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we always, so when a school brings us in, they bring us in because they hear the word bullying, and, they have a bullying problem in their school, and every school has a bullying problem. That's just the way the world works. Unfortunately, there's kids who are mistreated by other kids all the time. And there are teachers who are mistreated by other teachers all the time. So there's bullying problems everywhere, but that's what gets us into the school. And then we tell them after we're done presenting that we can take the word bullying right out of the presentation. It's the same exact presentation. And really it is about taking care of each other. Now, our organization was kind of born on that bullying word because of our name, sweethearts and heroes. Now, when people hear the word sweethearts and heroes, sometimes there's a negative connotation that comes with that. They think, the sweethearts are the girls and the heroes are the boys. And that's just not what it is at all. Yeah. But sweethearts actually came from the word bully. So the word, the sweetheart is from the word bully. And that was actually, the word bully was invented in the 16th century. And when it was invented, we all know what a bully is: somebody who intentionally intimidates somebody who is seen as smaller or weaker than them, and they do it over and over again. So that's what a bully is. But in the 16th century, the word bully didn't mean that at all. It actually meant sweetheart. It actually meant sweetheart. And it was somebody who pushed you over and over and over again. But they did it in a positive way.
I didn't know that.
They pushed you to become better. Like, I think about this when I was injured and I was in the hospital for 6 months. And there were days that I absolutely was in a ton of pain and I didn't want to get out of that hospital bed. And people would come into my room and they would push me so that I would get out of that bed. Like my physical therapist, they'd have to say, Rick, come on, man. I know you're dealing with a lot right now. I know you're in a ton of pain, but you got to get up. And on those days, I didn't like those people. I would almost tell you that they were the bully of today. Like the way we look at it today, I didn't like them.
Yeah.
But I love them today because I wouldn't be where I'm at in this world right now without those people in my life. So that's where the word sweethearts came from. But really what those people were doing for me and what sweethearts have done for me many times in my life is they give me hope. Because that's what sweethearts do. Sweethearts are truly the carriers of hope. And I wouldn't be here with you today talking to you about this subject if it wasn't for the sweethearts in my life and the hope that they have given me. So that's where the word sweethearts came from.
Well, and I saw your video and I saw the definition that you used. Sweetheart used carrier of hope. I love that definition. And then Hero, I saw that you use this definition: someone willing to do something that no one else is willing to do. What an awesome definition. It's something that I am also in my work with leaders, giving that clarity around that. My tagline is clarity, confidence, courage, but it takes courage to have hope, doesn't it? It's a cowardless way to be able to step into it with cynicism and sarcasm. That's actually a coward's way of thinking. Courage is really connected to hope. And it's what I tell leaders all the time, just saying it takes more courage to be hopeful. And I'm proud of any human that's willing to step in that gap, because why? We will risk being disappointed. We will risk falling flat on our face. But it's those of us who get back up and say, I'm not going to stop hoping. That's what creates so much courage. And to be able to start that learning and that teaching from a younger age, man, I'm behind both of you guys so much, saying go, 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 because our humanity needs that. And this next generation, the cynicism is hitting sooner and sooner. So I just want to say, well done for what you're doing, and how gratifying it must be to see these kids respond to it, because kids know the truth, don't they? They know what really is going to set them free. They know what's really the truth out there. And so to see you guys stepping into those conversations, I want to ask you a little bit, how are the kids receiving this empowerment to be a sweetheart and a hero?
Can I walk back just for 1 second? If my if my internet cuts out, Rick, just finish this, because I think it's very important that when we talk about hope, and I love talking courage. We can have a 2-hour conversation on this thing called courage, and I'll hand it back to Rick here. But hope for our organization has always stood for hold on, possibilities exist. And truly, if you look at why 22 service members end their own life every day in this country, it's really that struggle. They don't see the possibilities that exist for their future. And so they're willing to give up. And there's this eerie parallel right now between our service members and our children, where in the most technologically advanced civilization that Earth has ever known, we have young people feeling like they can't hold on to the possibilities that exist for their future, so they're willing to give up at a rate that planet Earth has never seen. And really, that's what Rick taught me. And he has a beautiful story of a 5-year-old little girl when he was probably at one of his lowest points, that took that hope that she carried in her, because every human has this thing called hope inside of them that they can give to other people if they choose to. And the issue is, our kids don't realize that they carry that with them, that they are the solution to hopelessness. They're the ones on the front line, not you and I, but our children. And we must empower them. I'm a huge Edward Deci, Richard Ryan fan. They came up with self-determination theory about 30 or 40 years ago. And one of the great parts of that is that autonomy that we must give to children if you want them to become competent. And so really, I just think it's very important. And Rick, I'd love for you to jump in on any thoughts you have on that. But I think it's important that we understand that the struggle that the existential struggle that our young people are in right now is with hope. And that's why, you travel with one of the world's hope experts. You just see kids flock to him and say, man, if this guy can go through what he's going through, I'm on fire on the inside. Maybe I can get through it too, especially when your school is riddled with these carriers of hope that we're creating.
I love it. Yeah. Tell us more.
I don't think I'm not there to tell a kid to never be hopeless, because they will. That's just life. Like, I will feel hopeless again in my life. I felt hopeless before when I was in Iraq and on the ground and on fire. I was hopeless when I was in the hospital and I was dealing with the things I was dealing with there. And, I will feel hopeless again at some time. I think about, I have a service dog, and, he's almost 13 years old now, and he's not going to be around forever. And he's like a child of mine, and I'm going to feel hopeless at that time. But what I'm teaching these kids is to recognize how to get through that hopelessness and not to be in that hopeless state for long. Like, when I was injured in Iraq, I was hopeless for too long. I didn't know how to get through it. Now, I don't know how much I blame myself for, because how would I know? But today I know that I will never feel that hopeless ever again, because I won't stay in that hopelessness long. I need to pull myself out of it as quickly as possible. And the way I pull myself out of that hopelessness is by looking around and seeing all the amazing things that are still happening around me, even though I'm going through something really, really difficult, something really, really awful. And you know what? When I'm dealing with those difficult things, I will turn to the people that are around me that I know are going to give me that hope, those sweethearts in my life. Sometimes they come out of nowhere. Like Tom was saying, that little girl who, when I was in a restaurant, 8 months after my injury, she came up to me, and she came halfway over to me, and I didn't want her to come all the way over to me because I knew she was afraid of me. I could tell that. And I said to her, hey, how you doing? Because I didn't want her to come all the way over to my table. And when I said that, she turned around and ran back to her grandfather, which is what I knew she would do. She was terrified of me. But when she got back to her grandpa, she did something that I didn't expect. And she actually said, he's really nice. Like, that's not what I expected her to say. But that sweetheart in my life gave me hope. That's where I learned that it doesn't matter how old you are, you carry hope. Every single one of us in this world, we're born with it. And we can give it to other people if we choose to. That little girl gave it to me. And you were talking about that word courage. I would tell you that the hope she gave me also gave me a boatload of courage. Because before that, I didn't want to go out in public.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be seen. I was afraid of it. She gave me the courage that I needed to go out in public. That's the hope that kids can have, and that we all can have to give to other people, change lives with it.
I love it. And kids have it a little bit more authentically. I think we lose it as we age. And I love that we are going after, use a phrase, pull myself out of my hopelessness. Think in the work that I do, people don't realize they have the capacity to pull themselves out of their hopelessness. And so I get it. All my fingers are pointing back. I get it. When you are hopeless, it feels, well, frankly, hopeless. It feels despairing. And to have someone say you can pull yourself out, you can't. It doesn't feel like you can. But to recognize and know that in your head begins that process of allowing yourself to kind of be open to a new possibility. I love the word that you keep in there, is that P for possibility, letting them have this possibility of, I think I can pull myself out of my hopelessness, and not even realizing that when we choose to do that, people are watching. And it's a contagious ripple effect that goes out. But none of us even realize that when we make that choice, it's going to impact and serve someone else later down the road. This is why I love talking about in leadership and in my research. And I think this is where we parallel each other so much. When I went back and got my PhD, I said, I just want to focus on why are people, not just why are they spiraling down? We already know they're spiraling down. I want to start focusing on creating a capacity to spiral up, create more ability to not just cultivate hope, but cultivate clarity, cultivate confidence, cultivate courage, there are these awarenesses now that we're realizing that says we don't have to be a victim of our spiraling down. On one hand, I want to just affirm people and say, I get it. When we're spiraling down, oh my gosh, it's hard. And we need someone in there to hold the hope, if not with us, for us, because we don't even have the capacity to do that. But at some point, every human being has that opportunity to kind of reach up and begin a spiraling up process. What I love is that you're starting at this younger age and you're starting to say, you hold this within you, cultivate it. And I guess that's where I want to go with this conversation. What are some things that you're doing to empower our children to cultivate the innate ability they already hold within them to be hopeful?
Well, I really like there's so many ways we can take this conversation. You mentioned the word courage, and Socrates said courage was the greatest of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't go in and buy a slice of pizza. You can't go and make a phone call. And the only thing a parent really wants for their child is to have courage to go out into the world and to do whatever he or she's going to do. And you have to start with courage. And little kids start with it. And I love asking this question. We do a lot of what we call circle.
I don't
want to say perfected. Yeah. We spent I did about 700 circles this year myself. It's my favorite place to be. But one of my favorite questions to ask when I meet someone for the first time, and I'll ask you this question, I would say, who's your favorite superhero? And you would say, who?
Well, do you want like a Marvel comic superhero, or do you want like someone I feel like is a hero in my life?
It's not my hero. It's your hero.
I would say one of my heroes, I have two heroes that I'm looking at right now, and they're still living. One is Parker Palmer, who's this amazing philosopher of our age. Well, I've got three heroes. Another one is Richard Rohr, which is an amazing theologian and thinker that is transforming the way I think. And then the third one I would say is an author, novelist, Sue Monk Kidd. So these are three huge influencers in my life, and I've read their books over the last several decades. So they've become kind of a heroic status for me because they're teaching me how to reach for courage and more hope.
Yeah. See, when you're a little kid, what you do is you put on silly costumes and you go outside and you jump off of picnic tables and you fight trees. And most people look out and they say, what's that crazy kid doing? And what he or she is doing is they're practicing being brave. And we don't look at it that way. And then all of a sudden, what we do as adults is we annihilate play in children and we destroy it. And that's a huge problem, because we lose that ability to continue to practice courage. But then eventually what happens is most of us, and I'm glad that that's happened to you, is you start to find some real superheroes in your life that start to give you a different form of courage, an adult courage that says, hey, I can do this too, just like these other great peoples from the past. And really that's what we do with the other side of our message, which is the hero side. And that's the action side. It certainly takes action to give hope to other people. But heroes are people that are willing to do things other people aren't willing to do. Like go and sit with a kid in the cafeteria who's brand new to the school that smells different than other kids. That's a really difficult thing to do for most young people. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. But the part of the formula, and I'm going to get to your question here, the part of the formula that we've messed up is we don't practice those skills with children. If I were to say to you, what do you do when you catch on fire? You'd finish the sentence. You'd say, I'd stop, drop, and roll. Yet before today, you've probably never met a single human being that's ever used that formula, stop, drop, and roll. We invented that because it potentially saves someone that's in a life-threatening situation. And for kids that are being mistreated or that are just feeling hopeless because of their life circumstances, that are on fire on the inside, socially, psychologically, emotionally. If you walk up to any kid in America and you say, what do you do when you see that kid not being treated the right way, or that kid that's struggling, that's brand new to the school, whose mom's got a drug or alcohol problem? Most kids look at you and they say, tell a teacher. They really have no idea what to do. And that's where the second half of our message comes in, where we actually put curriculum and strategies in place that teach kids, and number one, help them practice what we would call jumping into action, because that's what heroes do. They jump into action. And we've just created a very dynamic formula that when people see it, when they feel it, when they watch kids, it's really engineered around self-directed, self-controlled play, which is the greatest. Stuart Brown said this, where all mammals learn to go from childhood into adulthood is in self-directed, self-controlled play. So we really weave this tapestry of play and social and emotional health and skills that can be pretty boring to talk about, like self-awareness and self-management. And we weave them into the fabric of what kids do understand, which is heroes and fun. But at the same time, it's a giant head fake that teaches them how to jump into action and save kids that they recognize are struggling.
I love that.
I hope that all came out.
Oh, it totally did. Rick, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so in the presentations that we do at the end, we do these bully drills, and that's kind of them where they get to dress up and they get to act silly in front of all of their friends, and they recognize that sometimes it feels really uncomfortable to help somebody that might be different or might be dealing with something difficult, and they put on that outfit and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel ridiculous and that my friends are laughing at me. But it is difficult to do that in real life too. You're not putting on that outfit, but you're going to be looked at and people might laugh at you. But by the end of it, they're just like, man, this was fun because they got to help somebody who was in need. Right. And they just need to recognize that they can, and they do recognize it. They just need somebody to push them a little bit. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're the catalyst for that, is the push to make them recognize that they can do so many things for other people. They just got to do it. Jump into action.
Well, I guess I want to speak to this too. For my listeners who can't see you, Rick, can you give us a little idea of really what happened to you and your injuries over in Iraq, did you say?
Yeah, it was in Iraq.
And then how the kids are responding to that, because it's a very powerful visual. So speak to that a little bit for my listeners who aren't looking at you.
Yeah, so 17 years ago, I was deployed in Iraq, and a soldier in the Army, and my vehicle that I was in, a Bradley, was hit with an IED. And as soon as it was hit, I was on fire, and I had to get out of the vehicle, and I jumped off of the top of the vehicle to get away from the fire. And when I did that, I broke my leg. So to the little kids, now I have a wicked awesome robot leg. And when you introduce it as that, they love it. Now, if you told them it was a prosthetic, they're like, okay, that's boring. You tell them it's a wicked awesome robot leg, they're like, yeah, that's awesome. So this is how I talk to the kids too.
Yeah.
And so I broke my leg. I ended up rolling into water that was there that I didn't know was there. And it put the fire out, saved my life. But I obviously look extremely different today. I have no ears, no nose. My hands are technically not working at all. I mean, that's all the motion I have. They move just a very, very little bit. So when I walk into a room with kindergarten and first graders today, they see me as something not just extremely different, but they don't see me as a person a lot of times, because a kid has never seen anyone that looked like me before. So how would they know what a person looks like? So when I walk in, they're like, what is it? They're thinking monster. They're thinking alien. They're thinking all these different things. And it's funny because my whole goal, now there's some kids who are just like, okay, that's a guy, and I understand it a little bit, but most of those kids don't. And I can pinpoint those kids that don't. And my job is to connect with those kids in like as quickly as possible. So now they can learn, because I think we all know that no one learns from anyone they don't connect with. So we need to learn how to connect first. Yeah. And those little kids, when they first see me, I can see the fear in some of their eyes. And then the first thing I say is, good morning. And I can see a lot of them are like, oh, whoa, that's not what I thought that's not what I thought I was going to hear. And, they're thinking some kind of different voice, or maybe you can't speak at all. And then they hear my voice and they're like, oh, okay. And by the end of it, they are just seeing me as Rick. And that's all I want.
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave that auditorium as Rick. And then I get to spend time with them in their classrooms and they can ask me any question they want. Because I can tell you right now that I am extremely comfortable with who I am. I am extremely comfortable with where I am. And I'll tell you again, it goes back to that story with that little girl and the courage she gave me with the hope she gave me. I wouldn't be speaking in schools today if it wasn't for that little girl and the hope that she gave me. There's no way. And I wouldn't be speaking if I didn't have courage and confidence in myself. Like,
Yeah.
I am extremely confident. I am extremely comfortable. I am confident as well, but I am extremely comfortable with who I am and the way I am. This is the way I look. And you know what? I cannot change it. So why am I gonna focus on it? This is what I got. And I'll tell you today that I'm blessed to have it. And what happened to me that day in Iraq that I told you about, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it led to the amazing things in my life.
That is an amazing statement. First off, thank you for serving, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just, it's easy to tell people like George Orwell, and I was just reading Wig and Peer last year, and I just wrote down this one line, and I remember he said, "You got to screw up your courage." And it's really easy to tell someone that. It's easy to go to a school and march in and as a UFC guy and say, "Hey, you can protect yourself, you can defend yourself, you can change your life." But when a kid or a person is in a negative spiral and they're really, battling depression and fear and anxiety that has now like tripled in our children. I mean, anxiety is off the charts in kids today and even in adults. You think that you can give someone a message and say, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And we have just come to the realization, really because of that story. If I had marched into Rick Yarosh's room and said, "You can do this, buddy, you can make something out of yourself," I don't know if that really would have worked, because then I disappear from the school. The kid by third period, fourth period is going to be humiliated again. He's going to realize he's going home to sleep on a couch, in a very difficult situation. But this little 5-year-old girl that didn't know she had this hope inside of her.
Yeah.
At the right moment, the universe opens up the window, the skies, the clouds part, and gives this man who's 25 years old hope when he was probably at one of his lowest. And that was the thing that just flipped this switch and got him to see that he could pull himself up by his own bootstraps. And now he's got this wonderful gift in his life that he knows that every time he's struggling, that hope is out there. And a lot of the time it comes through the other people in this environment, because life is about one thing. It's about these relationships. And we have to be on the hunt, for people that are struggling, to give them this hope that we all carry, because that's really what leads people many times to courage and confidence to be able to overcome things, because we get it from the heroes in our lives, right?
Right.
Little kids get it from Superman, and then they go practice it. And now you get it from some great philosophers and theologians, which propels you forward in your life.
Yeah. And I do want to back up a little bit. Rick, can you unpack that a little more for us? What was it about this 5-year-old that gave you so much hope? It was such a random meeting, and yet not random, to your point, Tom, that you're just saying there was some sort of arranged encounter that feels like it was exactly what you needed. But can you speak to us a little bit more and tell us why that was so important to you?
Yeah, well, so one thing I've learned, and this is probably more recently that I've learned this, we also have to be receptive to hope. We have to be able to take it ourselves, because there may have been some circumstances before that little girl that I just didn't recognize because I was in such this hopeless state, and I was blinded to all the really good things that were going on around me, because that was let's say 8 months after my injury. That for 8 months, and like there were good things that were happening in my life too. I just wasn't seeing them. So that day, my eyes were just opened differently. Something was going on. The timing was perfect, because really what could have happened is that little girl could have done that, and I could have been like, you know what, not recognizing what it was. It was hope. And it was such a desperate time for me because when I went out in public and kids saw me,
Mm-hmm.
they ran away. They
Mm-hmm.
hid behind their parents. They did something like that. And they saw me as a monster, like I said earlier. Some kids, that's why they still see me. But that little girl, when she did that for me, so we talk about changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big task. I mean, there's no bigger task than changing the world.
Yeah.
Well, how about we change someone's world?
Mm.
And that's what happened that day. That little girl did not change the world, because if that's what happened, then rainbows would have shot out of her and they would have hit all the little kids in the world. And every little kid would now see me as, oh my gosh, it's Rick. He's so
Yeah.
handsome. And that's not what happened. But it changed my world. And that's how, I could see things differently.
Yeah.
And when she changed my world, it gave me an opportunity to change other people's world. And when you're doing that, you're changing other people's world, you are having a part of changing the entire world. That's just how it works. So that little girl, that's how big that was for me, because at that time, I was to the point where it was like, do I even go out in public anymore? Do I just stay home? But what future is that? Like, there isn't one. So I was forcing myself to be uncomfortable by going out in public. And that's how I've learned the best way to become comfortable in life is by doing that uncomfortable thing over and over again. And then you become courageous, and then you become confident when you do those uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
So that little girl was in my life at the perfect time that I needed her.
Oh, what a beautiful story.
There's actually, Rick, a couple weeks or so months before, Rick was in a grocery store, and I think the problem was Rick always wanted to have kids from the conversation we've had, and he had this encounter with a little boy, and it didn't go well. Rick's one of the most empathetic people I've ever met in my life, and it was a kind of a disaster. And I think the door was closed, and no matter what adult came to him and would have said, "Oh no, Rick, you'll be fine," it wouldn't have mattered. It took. And some ancient philosopher wrote about, you have to see things as a child to get into the kingdom, whatever, however that goes. And, I think it was the innocence and the purity of this child that the door was slammed shut on him, but he needed her to open the door. And what Rick just said about, changing the world and the universe, I think it was Solzhenitsyn that said the universe has as many centers as there are human beings. And we're all the center of the universe. And, once the light goes out for you and for me and Rick, the universe is over. Like it's over. And so, as Mother Teresa said, never worry about the numbers. Just help the person next to you, and you've changed the world. And that's what happened that day. And because of the result of that one child changing Rick's world, his reality, Rick has now changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of other kids and given them that same hope, especially the ones that feel like they're on fire on the inside. Like that's the one that we can't see the scars on the outside. We can't see the trauma. We can't see the adverse childhood experiences that young people have gone through and the battle that they're in against the search for meaning that kids are just having an awful time with, and this great need for human acceptance. But when Rick Yarosh comes into a school, everybody's life changes. And that's the beauty of being associated with one of the world's hope experts.
Well, not only that, I think what I'm learning, one of my big takeaways, Rick, as I'm listening to you, is hope really grows. It doesn't stay stagnant. And so for you to say today, like you probably wouldn't have said this years ago, but for today, for you to say, I'm glad this happened to me. I mean, that was the pathway of one little tiny piece of hope till today now, where you have so much confidence and so much clarity that this was the path that you're grateful for. To me, that's like, I think that's what is so exciting in our work with humans is, I promise you, it only takes a seed, one tiny little seed. But if you keep watering it, it's going to be this massive tree one day with massive roots. And so, and you're still not done, Rick. So it's exciting for me to just be a little small witness on this side here today and just say, I get to see that and I get to hear you say that. And I'm like, I can't wait to see what's going to be happening the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, I'm telling you right now, thank God I got an amazing team with me, with
Oh, good.
Tom and Squires and Heroes, and, my family, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the seed is there, and I'm not the only one that waters that seed. It's the people around me as well who help
Yeah.
me water that seed and help my growth and help that hope inside me grow as well.
Right. It grows so much exponentially, not just with you internally, with anyone's involved in it. So
Yeah.
it's inspiring just to listen to you. And this
Well,
is why.
if you haven't, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to tell you because you triggered something in me.
Sure.
We wrote a great book. It's called The 13 Pillars for Effective Teachers, and it's a 2-hour conversation. But one of the chapters is called The Butterfly Effect, and Edward Lorenz, the mathematician, and came up with this butterfly effect, and that's what he said. The smallest little flap of the butterfly's wing, can have exponential changes. And when you look at things like gratitude and faith, and Rick has said for years that getting blown up was the best thing that ever happened to him. But don't ever forget that gratitude, faith, trust, they all are a form of courage. They all take courage to perform.
Yes.
And so that's one of the great lessons I've learned from Rick, is that we can talk about gratitude and tell people to do journals, but that's another form of courage. Gratitude is a form of courage that must be practiced as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think, as we use that analogy of a little seed and moving into a large tree, pretty soon people are hanging tire swings from that tree. They're building houses in that tree. It has the ability to hold so much, and humanity needs that right now. And it doesn't even faze you. So you're just building your hope one day after another. And the ripple effect of that is so powerful. And Tom, I hear it coming out of your pores as well. Just the hope just coming out of you to participate in building and cultivating hope is so inspiring to hear. And I think before we wrap up, I do want to hear you speak just briefly. I want to circle back around to Circle Time. Can you tell us a little bit about what Circle Time is and that experience?
Yeah, we've got a great series. I can get it to you if you want. We put a tremendous amount of effort into it. It's the outside of play, and play is probably my favorite area of study. I've been studying play, the science of play, for many, many years, for almost a decade now. I'm a big Peter Gray fan. I'm a big Stuart Brown fan. And I wish school could just be play, but it can't. So as an alternative, we started doing Circle about 7 years ago. We do giant trainings for Circle because we've developed a very unique brand of Circle, but it's an ancient practice that stretches back over 400,000 years. And our circles are fun. It's engaging. If you've done other forms of Circle, I'm sure they're great, but ours are just at a different level. And I don't say this, to be arrogant and to say ours is better than yours. I'm just, we've done thousands of circles, and they've had such an enormous impact in the environments that we've been part of. So, Circle is a place where people can listen. And if you look at the science of empathy, and I could go into a 2-day dissertation because we do 2-day seminars on Circle. But if you look at the science of empathy, how empathy germinates and grows in human beings, it's very important that people understand that it starts with perspective taking. It starts with conversations, the science of empathy. When you look at like the intergroup empathy bias, and we have cut human connection in half in children. About 9.5 hours is the average screen time for an American kid today. And they don't take each other's perspectives anymore, which means their emotional sharing just completely drops off. But we are where we are today because of empathy as human beings. This is why we have the society we're in, because we've learned to get together. We've learned to share resources, especially for those that are struggling. And that's empathy. And now it's been cut in half in the last 30 years in our children. And what Circle does, and I'll land on this, what Circle does, it's an alternative to play where empathy has grown the greatest. But what Circle does is it engineers a time for us to practice some of these human skills that we've been practicing for thousands of years in the educational setting. And it's something that must be practiced, human connection. And we used to just practice it when we were baking cookies with dad, working on a car with mom, being in the barn with grandpa. We just don't do that at the rate. So when we bring circle to schools, people fall in love with this formula that we've done because it's fun, it's engaging, it's an emotional, kids are sharing with each other. But at the end of the day, when we leave and they continue doing circle for months and years, the entire culture shifts and it becomes more empathetically fit, we like to say. We've invented something called empathetic fitness. And just everyone, whether it's a business, we were just out in California doing them with Marines at Camp Pendleton. They sadly lost 2 Marines in one unit in the last 6 months to suicide. And we've had Marines, infantry Marines doing circle, and they just love it. So I could do 10 episodes with you on circle if you ever want to. We love doing circle. It's a wonderful place to be. It's an ancient place to be, but we're battling an ancient enemy, which is anxiety and fear. And we might just have to, go back to an ancient practice to defeat this ancient enemy.
Well, I think what's hitting me, and we're going to start wrapping up here, but I think what's hitting me, my big takeaway, I keep hearing the word practice. I think we let go because of our pace of work, technology, everything else, our pace of living. We've let go of these natural ways that we probably were able to practice around the campfire, around the circles.
Yeah.
We've let go of some of that, just listening to stories with grandpa talking to us as we fall asleep because we're not scrolling on our phone. So what I love what you're doing is you're bringing back what is probably natural flow to the human spirit. And you're saying, because we've let go of this, go ahead.
No, I hate to jump in on you because I love what you just said about natural flow to the human spirit.
Yeah.
You got to coin that. That was beautiful.
Okay, cool.
But here's what I tell educators all the time, right?
Yeah.
Imagine going into a math class, explaining a math problem one time and saying, good luck, I'll see you at the test. Don't let kids practice it. Just explain the math problem and say, good luck, I'll see you at the test.
Right.
Any educator would laugh you out of the room. Right. But you don't think there's no harder math equation than going into a cafeteria and sitting with a kid that smells different or that's brand new to the school or whose dad's in jail or sitting next to a guy with no ears, one leg, and melted hands. There's no harder math equation. And what in the heck? You don't think that kids have to practice those skills just like math or science or reading? Of course they do.
Yeah.
You're crazy if you don't think so. So I've been saying for years, and I'll land on this, I don't think we need educators to teach content anymore. I know we do need them a little bit for that, but kids learn stuff at a rate that you and I can't even imagine. But the human skills that they haven't learned, those skills used to be practiced in things like play and just other personal interactions with other humans that we have just destroyed in children. And we've got to get back to practicing these skills.
Well, and I think that's what's so exciting is children know the natural flow of the human spirit. They already instinctively know it. We just start society and the way that we live and work starts kind of robbing them of it. And so I think it's not only the right thing to do, it's the righteous thing to do. Just step into that space and say, we're going to take responsibility for breaking down that flow as adults. We know better. Let's step back into that and create systematic and structured ways to help them get back into that flow with the human spirit. And I think this is the question I love landing on, because in my work with just thousands of people now and all over the world, I'm always curious about what helps people get into their natural flow of their own sense of self. Because I believe out of that, we live these amazing, powerful lives that we could never even describe. And I think I like to ask people, what's your morning ritual? What do you do to wake up, start the day? It doesn't have to be super profound or anything like that, but I'm just curious because I've heard all sorts of things, but I'm realizing this is really a core practice that people do in order to start creating the trajectory of their life that they want to be living on. So what's your morning rituals? What do you do as you start your day?
Tom, go ahead. Ours are going to be way different.
No, please.
I can guarantee you that.
I can tell your personalities, I'm sure.
You know what I do? I put my beats on, my headphones. I lay in bed when I'm in the transition between the conscious and the subconscious. And right now, one of the most fascinating books I'm listening to. It's called Master and Margarita. If you haven't, it's by Volkov. And I love the Russians, those early Russian writers. And I just stay in that subconscious state as long as I can. Sometimes it's other ancient philosophers, going back to, even some biblical stuff. Mm-hmm. I just love to soak and bathe my subconscious in that every morning. Sometimes I even fall back into sleep. And that's really what I do. Rick, I've never told Rick this before, so you're outing me a little bit. But I put them on and I lay there and I bathe in it. I bathe in the wisdom and the knowledge of the giants that I have the privilege of. I'm never even going to stand on their shoulders. I'll be lucky just to look up at them and soak it in. And that's what I do. And then, and then I get up and I work all day until I go to bed. Like a not very smart person. So
well,
that's my ritual in the morning. It
sounds like you fuel yourself up, ready to go, though. I hear you. That's great. What about you, Rick?
That is Tom's version. He works more than anyone else I've ever met in my life.
I can tell.
It's all day, every day. My ritual, I don't truly have a set ritual. And it kind of depends on where I am with us being on the road so much, waking up in the hotel and, it's a process for me to get up in the morning. I hop into either my wheelchair or if I'm at the hotel, I hop into a, rolling desk chair and then I roll over to my prosthetic and put it on. I mean, it's just part of my day. I don't even think about doing it. It's just a part of my morning. Most other people are like, okay, that's a different type of day. But when I'm in the hotels, I'm thinking about what I'm doing the rest of that day. Those kids that I'm going to meet, the presentations that we're doing, the schedule that we have, going through that. Just going through the day with that. And then at home, the ritual is totally different than that. It's, the true unedited, uncut version is my wife would tell me and everyone else that I spend way too much time in the bathroom in the morning. There's the unedited version.
I love it.
I get yelled at for the husband time in the bathroom.
A little bit of me time.
Yeah. So, but when I wake up, and I go, same thing in my wheelchair, head into the bathroom, get my leg on, and then, it's my family. That's the rest of the day. I don't have a set plan, but it's as much time as I can possibly spend with my family during that day.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, listen, I got to jump in on this real quick. So Rick Yarosh was blessed beyond belief by getting blown up in Iraq. He met his wife, Amy, years after his injury, which is just the story. If we told you the story, which we don't have time for, it's a tearjerker for this beautiful woman to find this truly Beauty and the Beast story. But then, he has his daughter, Tenley. But 2+ years ago, he was blessed with this blonde-haired little ball of fire named Grace. They got Grace when she was 10 days old from the hospital. And I would guarantee that Rick's ritual at home is just every day he gets to open his heart with joy and go to that bedroom, that wherever she's sleeping. And I know this because 4 kids, my oldest is 19 now. And I can remember, I can close my eyes and I used to go wake them up and my wife would get so mad at me because you couldn't wait to see the joy on their face in the morning. And I know that's his ritual. It's getting with Grace, especially in the morning, because I know his heart has been given to her. And I could talk about what I've learned from this man and being able to see him and this beautiful young lady continue to grow together.
I'm so glad you chimed in, Tom. We needed that little bit extra on Rick. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful.
And again, the uncut, unedited version of that is by 1 p.m. I'm ready for a break too.
Yeah. Let's kick that pedestal out from underneath you, huh, Rick?
That's right. I'm just a truth teller, man. Life is extremely good. with some pieces that we always decide to leave out because, the reality is some things are tough too.
Yes. Oh, I appreciate it. Appreciate your authenticity, both of you. Been such a pleasure. We're going to get as many links as possible in the show notes underneath, just to make sure that we're sharing all your goodness out there and the hope and the resiliency of hope. Yeah. And I just want to ask you all, where's the best place where people can find you if they want to find out more about you or invite you into their schools or their classrooms or just into their life?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if Tom's there. So sweetheartsandheroes.com is our website. You can find anything that you need to about us on there. There's links to our YouTube page, our Instagram, our other social. I don't do social media, so I don't know exactly what social media we have, but we have a whole bunch, and we have a ton of content out there. Ton of content.
Great. Well, I'll be following you, and I'll jump on there in all the different places. I already checked out all your YouTube, enjoyed those. I would highly recommend that to our listeners. If you want 5 to 7, 10 minutes of hope and inspiration, just click on one of their YouTubes. You're just going to love it, and you're going to be cheering them on. So Rick, Tom, I am cheering both of you on, and I'm cheering on all the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for serving our country. Thank you for serving our kids. Thank you for serving humanity. I'm behind you all the way.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. This has been an honor, and it's been a lot of fun. That's the most important part about it.
Oh, thanks. And we might have lost Tom, so I think he's saying goodbye to us. We'll just say he's saying goodbye to us.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, there he goes. We got him back in. Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thanks for joining us. We had such a great time today. And obviously, we are all stepping into this life that we're made for. But isn't it nice to have a little bit of support along the way? If you want to find out more about the life that you're made for, come find me at heatherpenny.com. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. That really helps us out and helps spread the word. You get to step into the life that you're made for. Cheering you on.